What's up, Internet? This is Rambling Josh, and you're watching another episode of Let's Play Pokemon Red. Today we make our way through the extremely dark rock tunnel. Thankfully, we took the time to get HM5 and teach Drowsy Flash. And that makes the area a lot easier to see. And what was that? 2 steps into the rock tunnel, we've already gotten into a random encounter? That's the problem with cave areas in this game, is the encounter rate is just ridiculously high. But that's okay. Thankfully we can at least kill some stuff with Drowsy now that he knows Confusion. I would like to use Drowsy as much as I can throughout this cave, just because, well, he's a lot lower level than everyone else. He's still like, he's a little bit above half the level of Charmeleon, and that's just not acceptable. Unfortunately, this cave is really long, so chances are I'm going to have to end up using my other Pokemon a whole lot. Against a level 23 Cubone, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, rather, to use Drowsy, considering it's quite a few levels above me, and it's not weak to Psychic. Gyarados, on the other hand, well, Gyarados has Bubble Beam, and Cubone is a Ground-type Pokemon, so that makes sense. I would like to use Gyarados as my kind of go-to Pokemon in this cave, just because his level is also pretty low, but Gyarados is, like, amazing and stuff, so he can still probably, like, wipe the floor with everything in this cave. Basically. I mean, I guess he had a little trouble with that Slowpoke, which was kind of odd, but whatever. Now, I believe I mentioned in the last episode that you can actually get through this cave without Flash, and that's completely and totally true. Like, it's actually not that hard as long as you kind of know your way around the cave a little bit. And in reality, the cave isn't all that confusing. There aren't any, like, treasures or anything to find in the cave, so it's basically just making your way from ladder to ladder, and knowing which rocks to wind your way around. I mean, ultimately, if you just take the absolute most basic path and just hug the right wall of the cave, then you'll find your way out every time, as far as I know. I don't think there's any areas where that would get you in trouble, but yeah. I think, like, you can see a little bit. Like, I guess you can see the edges of the rocks and stuff, even if you don't have Flash. So you know where the walls are, even if you don't know exactly where everything in between them are. Because, obviously, the screen is almost always centered on you. So you know you're going to be in the middle of the screen. This Slowpoke is actually giving me a lot of trouble. Bubble Beam didn't really seem to do a whole lot for me. Not surprising considering Slowpoke is water type, but I guess we kill him eventually. I would like to get through this cave without having to return to the Pokemon Center. So, in that interest, let's use a Super Potion on Gyarados here. He's back to almost full health. So yeah, you can make your way through the cave without Flash if you want. It's not as hard as it might seem. I guess probably the biggest thing is knowing where the trainers are in regards to whether you want to hit all the trainers or avoid all the trainers. But if you don't really care about either of those, then it's pretty easy. Honestly, the biggest, it's also really easy to get Flash, though. Oh shoot, Drowsy's paralyzed. So yeah, like, getting Flash isn't hard, so you might as well do it. The biggest downside to Flash, though, is just the fact that you have to teach it to one of your Pokemon and overwrite one of their abilities. And when it comes to HM abilities, like, you can't unlearn them. So, for example, Drowsy will always know Flash now. Charmeleon will always know Cut. I can't unlearn those abilities. So you're basically restricted to having three abilities for the entire game. And I believe Flash just has a chance to make your opponent unable to attack the next turn, or no, I think it works the same as Sand Attack, and that it just lowers their accuracy. So it's not all that useful. So we managed to take this chick out. Our psychic attacks were pretty effective. Unfortunately, Paralyzed persists after battle. And I don't think I have any way to cure Paralyzed, so Drowsy's in a spot of trouble. He's probably not going to last a whole lot longer. The annoying thing about Paralyzed is that, well, there's a few things. Obviously, there's the fact that when you're paralyzed, whenever you try to attack, there's a chance that your attack is just going to fail, which obviously is annoying. The other thing that you might not notice is that when you're paralyzed, it actually means that your speed is, like, I think it sets your speed to 0 or something like that. Effectively, that's what it does. Basically, it means that no matter what speed your opponent is, you will always go after them. So, at least I'm pretty sure that's how it works. There might be some fringe case, depending on how exactly Paralyzed works. It doesn't actually set your speed to 0, because if both of you and your opponent are paralyzed, then the faster Pokemon will still go first. But the point of the matter is, if you have a really fast Pokemon who's paralyzed, and your opponent is really slow but not paralyzed, they will still go before you. So that can be really useful and have some interesting ramifications that you might not think about if you didn't know that's how it worked. The biggest thing about status effects, honestly, in this game is just the fact that it means that your Pokemon tend to get really kind of worn down. Like, in a cave like this, the hardest part about getting through it is never going to be that the trainers are especially hard or the random Pokemon are especially hard. They're always going to be pretty easy to kill. The problem is always going to be your team just getting worn down over time, because some of these areas can be really long, and more to the point, if, like, how should I put this? If you have, like, a really strong Pokemon, like, you probably noticed back when I was using only Charmeleon that I was killing everything, like, super fast. Nothing really had the chance to kill any, like, to even do any damage to me for the most part. And that's pretty true throughout the whole game. If you have the right team of Pokemon, you can kill pretty much anything without taking a whole lot of damage. But when you start introducing status effects into the mix, that's when things start getting kind of nasty. If you look at something like Paralyze or Poison, or we just fought a Zubat a couple minutes ago, Confusion, like, none of those are going to make it particularly hard to kill the current Pokemon. Hopefully I can kill this Machop. Come on, Confusion! Yay, critical hit. Anyways, as I was saying, like, status effects, typically, they won't make that big a difference on finishing the actual current fight, unless it's like a pretty even fight, because normally in this game, you'll probably find that you're going to be a lot stronger than your opponents. So status effects usually won't have enough difference to really, like, change the flow of battle. Well, they'll change the flow of battle, but, like, to influence the outcome, I guess. But when you have those status effects applied to you, you're a lot more likely to take damage, and thusly you are worn down a lot quicker. So, for example, here, I tried to use Confusion. I thought maybe there's a possibility that Geodude would use Defensive Curl, and I might be able to kill him. But obviously that didn't happen, so we have to use Bubble Beam instead, because Gyarados is amazing. But the point is, if Drowsy hadn't been paralyzed, then he would have gone first, and I don't know, maybe there's a chance Confusion would have got a critical hit. That Geodude probably would have died straight up. If maybe I got to use Confusion and Geodude got confused. Maybe when he was confused, he hurt himself instead of attacking me. I could have killed that Geodude. And maybe he did use Defensive Curl. Maybe I went first, used Confusion, he used Defensive Curl, and then I went first again and used Confusion, that Geodude could have died. But in this situation, because Drowsy was paralyzed, Geodude was guaranteed to go first, and so all he had to do was get one successful tackle off, and nothing I could do could change that. And so that's an extremely overly complicated way of explaining the point that I was trying to make. Figure I might as well get some experience for Charmeleon here. I do want to kind of preserve some of Gyarados' attacks a little bit, just because, well, I'm going to be focusing on using him a lot now that Drowsy is dead. So, especially Bubble Beam is probably going to get a lot of use, so I don't want to use that more than I have to. Plus, Charmeleon can use experience too. It's really close to evolving, and I would like to get him up to level 36, although that's probably going to take a little while because experience, it doesn't come slower at this point, it's just you need more of it. Yay, random wild Geodudes. At this point, I'm mostly just leveling Gyarados up for just purely stats for being a higher level, which actually, in reality, is a little bit disappointing almost, because it's always fun to look forward to, oh, at level X I get a new ability, at level Y I evolve, or whatever. And Gyarados doesn't really have a whole lot of that left at this point. I do have, like, I think basically all I have left to learn for him is, like, a stronger water-type attack, and that's basically it. Which I have no idea what level he's going to learn any of that stuff at. But more stats is always important. Let's see what this hiker's got to throw at me. Hey, surprising! Let's try that again. Hey, what a surprise! He sent out a rock-type Pokemon. Who would have expected a hiker to do that? Good thing Gyarados knows Bubble Beam and can kill these guys in a single shot without any difficulty whatsoever. Onix is actually a little bit of a surprising Pokemon, and just in the way that it works. Because it's this big, like, huge, giant, like, rock snake, which you'd think would be pretty awesome. And I guess it is, really, but the fact of the matter is that Onix doesn't really have anything going for it aside from having a ridiculous amount of health. Or not health, defense. I think he has a good amount of health too, but like his special is abysmal, his speed is even worse, and his attack is definitely nothing to write home about, so Onix really doesn't have a lot going for it. Random counters ahoy! Random counters, indeed. There should be an EN in there somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where. One thing actually to mention about Onix is that the rock tunnel here is... It's not the only place you can catch them, but it's one of the only place. They're actually pretty rare. I think they're considered fairly rare. I think there are, I want to say 2 other areas in the game that you can catch them, but none of the other areas are until much later in the game. I guess I should actually kill this guy. I mean, not like kill him, but make all of his Pokemon faint and render him thusly incapable of fighting. Almost out of Bubble Beams here. That's gonna be unfortunate. But they are doing their job just fine, so it's hard to complain. Oh my! Graveler? What shall I ever do? Perhaps Bubble Beam? Yeah, I think that'll do it. That works just nicely. Obviously, as you can probably... Oh, hey, Dragon Rage. That's a new ability. I guess I might as well learn that. Well, it's certainly better than Splash, so let's do that. I was gonna start talking about something else, but I guess I might as well start talking about Dragon Rage instead. Dragon Rage is a bit of an interesting ability. It's actually very similar to... in previous episodes I mentioned both, I believe it was Magnemite, used a Sonic Boom, and even before that I learned Seismic Toss through a TM for Charmeleon. I mention both of these abilities because they're similar, especially Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom does a flat 20 damage no matter what, and Dragon Rage does a flat 40 damage no matter what, so it's exactly twice as good, although I think it probably has like half as many uses or something on it, just because that's how attacks work in this game. Now, Seismic Toss does a flat amount of damage based on your level, and I mention that mostly because, if you recall back when I was talking about situations where Seismic Toss would be useful, the same obviously applies to Dragon Rage. Namely, if you have an opponent that has a lot of defense and you don't have a good way of getting around that defense, using an attack with a flat amount of damage is obviously very good. I don't actually want to switch Gyarados out for this fight. So for an example, this cave is actually a very good time to learn Dragon Rage. As I've mentioned, obviously there's a lot of Rock-type Pokemon in this cave, and Gyarados is almost out of Bubble Beams. Or is he out of Bubble Beams? I'm not entirely sure. Whatever the case, how do you handle Rock-type Pokemon when you don't have an attack that they're weak against? Such as, say, water or grass. Is there anything else? I think flying attacks might be good against ground types, but not rock types. Well, obviously ground types are good against rock types, so I could just switch to Dugtrio. Anyways, the point is, not having any uses of Bubble Beam left, Dragon Rage is actually a very good substitute. Because obviously, if I use Bite, rock types are not going to take a whole lot of damage from that. But if I use Dragon Rage, it's going to do 40 damage no matter what. So at this point in the game, 40 damage is pretty much, like, it's a lot no matter what you're facing. So doing a flat 40 damage is significantly better than what I would be able to do with Bite. Obviously, it takes being out of Bubble Beams for that situation to come in handy, but hey, I mean, what are you going to do? Outside of this cave, I'm probably not going to end up actually using it all that much, but for now at least it's going to be useful. It's actually probably going to be some situations where it's even better than Bite at this point. Because like I said, at this point in the game, 40 damage is quite a lot. And against an opponent, even with just high defense, Dragon Rage is possibly going to do more damage than Bite would. It's, I don't know, like a Slowpoke or something. I don't know if they have a lot of defense. Maybe? Oh, self-destruct. That's unfortunate. That also means that I kind of wasted that Dragon Rage, which you only get 10 of them. Well, 10 at a time. So, I guess with that, I should probably use a Super Potion. I've actually gotten a lot of HP since I started this cave. Well, okay, maybe not a lot, but only 12, but whatever. So, if Gyarados does end up dying for whatever reason, then I guess I'll switch over to Dugtrio. At this point, my goal is basically to get all my characters, all my Pokemon, I guess, up to about level 30. Obviously, Charmeleon's a little bit higher than that, but I like nice, even numbers. I don't know why people always say even numbers, or at least in my case, when I say even numbers, I always seem to think of numbers that end in a 0 or a 5. And obviously, something like 25 isn't an even number, but that's completely beside the point. So I want to get all my Pokemon up to level 30. Obviously, right now, I'm focusing on Gyarados. And since Drowsy is obviously dead, if Gyarados does end up dying, Dugtrio is going to pick up the slack. As I mentioned, ground-type attacks are good against rock-type Pokemon, so he at least has the ability to take them out pretty easily via Dig. Once I do get out of this cave, though, obviously my focus is going to switch back over to Drowsy, just because, well, Drowsy is a lot lower level, and that's not acceptable. Drowsy needs a lot more work at this point. But getting Drowsy up to level is also very important, because Psychic-type Pokemon are pretty overpowered. We're pretty much done with the cave at this point. Not that we're, like, done, but we're pretty close to the exit. That ladder that we just took was the last ladder in the cave. Just use Bite just as an example for how much damage it's actually going to do. And compare it to Dragon Rage, which the comparison is actually a little weak, just because that Bite actually did quite a lot of damage. Gyarados has a lot of attack, so his Bite is a lot more effective than, I don't want to say any Pokemon, but the vast majority of Pokemon. Like, there are very, very few Pokemon whose attack power can match Gyarados'. Bellsprout, huh? I don't have a way of dealing a lot of damage to you, but... yeah. Clefairy... probably stick with Bite on this one rather than Dragon Rage, because I'm pretty sure Clefairies have almost no defense. There's an interesting fact actually about Bite, is that I know I mentioned in a previous episode that Bite has a high chance to get a critical hit, but that's actually not correct. Slash has a high chance of getting a critical hit, Karate Chop has a high chance of getting a critical hit. Just as a note, we can actually avoid this trainer altogether if we want, which you might not expect to be able to do. But anyways, Bite, I believe Bite and Slash actually have the same base power, but while Slash has a high chance to score a critical hit, Bite has a chance to inflict flinch. It does not have a high chance to score a critical hit. And basically, flinch just means that your opponent's attack will not be effective, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't extend over to the next turn. So if you're not faster than your opponent's Pokemon, flinch isn't going to do anything. At least I'm pretty sure. Whereas if this Rattata were to not die, and it were to be flinched, the attack that it chose to use that turn would be rendered ineffective. It just wouldn't do it. So that's kind of handy. Although I'm probably not going to get a chance to demonstrate it, because apparently I'm also out of bites now, so that's kind of unfortunate. Dragon Rage it is, I guess? I do still know Tackle, so that's something anyways. Almost out of Dragon Rage too. Gyarados is really going kind of whole hog here. Oh no. Not Sleep Powder. Wake up. Please. Please. I really don't want Gyarados to die to a Bellsprout. Bellsprouts are, like, really weak. That'd be kind of embarrassing. The fact of the matter is, actually, that in Generation 1, Grass Pokemon have a really weird kind of role in the game. Because, like, it's really hard to get a good Grass-type Pokemon. Like, you can obviously choose Bulbasaur at the beginning of the game, but personally, I don't think Bulbasaur or its evolutions are as good as, like, Charizard or Blastoise. That's just my opinion, though. Also, luckily, this Bellsprout was using Growth, but it decided to attack me with Wrap, which... obviously, Wrap uses attack instead of specials, so Growth doesn't do anything for it. But anyways, back to Grass-type Pokemon. If you don't choose Bulbasaur, there really isn't a whole lot you can do in terms of getting a Grass-type. Like, outside of Cerulean City, kind of in the same areas where you could catch an Abra, you have a chance to find a Grass-type Pokemon. In Red, you can find Bellsprout. In Blue, you can find Oddish. And I believe in Yellow, you have the possibility of finding either of them. But the fact of the matter is, Bellsprout and Oddish are both pretty bad. Their stats are really bad. They don't really learn any good abilities. I believe if you evolve them all the way up into Victreebel or Vileplume, respectively, I think at that point they can be pretty good, but I still don't think they're as good as other Pokemon. And the fact of the matter is that there really aren't all that many situations where Grass-type Pokemon are particularly good. And I probably should have used Tackle instead of Dragon Rage there. But, whatever. Now, obviously, this cave is a place where Grass-type Pokemon would be handy to have, but I find that usually the use of a Pokemon is measured best by how useful they are against enemy gym leaders. Because this random Pokemon like you're gonna find in the rock tunnel here, they're not gonna be all that... Huh. Like, Grass Attack wasn't very effective against Gyarados. That's kind of weird. Gyarados' primary type is water, so I would think that grass isn't good against flying, so I would think that it being super effective against one element and not very effective against the other, I would think the two would cancel out. Or it might even be super effective just because water is Gyarados' primary type. But that actually might be a bug, because I'm pretty sure in Generation 1 there's a bug, let's see. Yeah, primary type water. I'm pretty sure Generation 1 has a bug where certain element combinations don't take the proper amount of damage against certain other elemental attacks. And grass type attacks against water flying Pokemon might actually be one of those cases. It seems like it might be the case just from memory, but it might not be. Anyways, as I was saying, I tend to measure the usefulness of a Pokemon on how useful it is against gym leaders and whatever other what you might consider bosses, because random Pokemon that you're going to find facing normal trainers and such, they're never hard. You can kill them pretty easily using basically anything. And when it comes to gym leaders, the only ones that grass type attacks are really useful against are the first and second one, and those are the first and second trainers. Obviously it's really useful at that point because you don't really have the ability to catch random Pokemon to kind of give you the versatility that your team needs. But at the same time, like, they're the first and second trainers. They're objectively the easiest trainers to beat. So, in that situation, I don't really find grass that useful. Anyways, we are through the rock tunnel. So, let's see where we're heading to now. We are here, rock tunnel. We're headed to Lavender Town. So, I'm not actually sure offhand how far away exactly Lavender Town actually is. Let's see here. It's not too far. So there's a bunch of trainers over there. There's obviously this tree here, which is standing all on its own, so obviously there's going to be some kind of item to find there. And Lavender Town is right down here. So, since that's so close, we might as well take on these trainers here. Now that I know I can get there without getting into any fights whatsoever, I have no issue taking these guys on, because if push comes to shove, I know the Pokemon Center is easily accessible. Of course, I still have, like, over half of my team left, so I'm probably not going to need the Pokemon Center. Tackle's not super useful against this Cubone, because Cubones have a ton of defense, but Cubones are ground-type Pokemon. And more importantly, the only attack that this Cubone knows at this point, Bone Club I think it's called, that is also ground-type. And since Gyarados is part flying, Bone Club has no effect on me, which is pretty nifty. That's not something you would actually expect, but the unexpected advantages are often the best. So, Slowpoke might be Water-type, but they don't really tend to learn any Water-type attacks, so let's send in Charmeleon. Sash. And a miss. Oh well. There we go. That should kill him, no problem. Does Gyarados really have, like, the same amount of HP as Charmeleon? They're like, what, 6 levels different? Yeah, I mean, it's almost the same. A little under 2,000 experience for Charmeleon to level up. Let's see what this hiker's got to say. I would love to be able to use Bubble Beam against this guy, but doesn't seem like that's gonna happen, considering I don't have any uses of Bubble Beam left. I'm actually surprisingly close to not having any attacks left on Gyarados. I think it's time to just put him out of his misery, though. For one, this beeping is getting pretty annoying. Oh, that's kind of funny. My tackle did more damage than Onix's, despite this Onix being, like, rock-type, and my tackle being not very effective against him. Anyways, now that that's done, it's Dugtrio's time to shine. Use some ground-type attacks. Yes, let's dig a hole underneath this giant rock snake. Clearly that'll be super effective. Actually, I guess in its own way that could be very effective if you, like, weaken the integrity of the ground underneath him. Onix is so heavy you'd probably just, like, fall through the ground. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking this a little bit. And down goes Mr. Graveler. So with that, we go back around up this way. A couple guys, well, a couple of trainers up here. At least one of them is female. See what you got. Was a pretty long hike. Especially if you're not as awesome as I am. Come at me, junior trainer female. Pidgey, huh? So I guess Dig is out. Unfortunately, the only other attack I know at this point is Scratch, which, by this point in the game, attacks like Scratch and Tackle are pretty terrible. Dugtrio does learn Slash eventually, but I'm not entirely sure what level he learns that at. Let's see here. See if I can find him real quick in my strategy guide. Slash, level 30, not 30, no, yeah, 35. So that's a little bit higher than I would have liked. Higher than I would have wanted, but whatever. It is what it is. This Pidgeotto really likes to use Whirlwind, which in Generation 1 doesn't actually do anything in battle, or at least against a trainer. I believe what Whirlwind is trying to do is blow your Pokemon out of combat. So if you use it in like a random battle, it'll just take you straight out of combat because it like blows the Pokemon away or something. But against a trainer, it doesn't do anything. I believe in future generations, though, Whirlwind, what it actually does is it switches your currently active Pokemon with a Pokemon in your reserves, or on your bench, or whatever you want to call it. So if this was a future generation and that Pidgeotto were to use Whirlwind on me then, it would switch my Dugtrio with, say, my Charmeleon or my Pidgey. Pretty sure I still have a Pidgey on my team. Well, whatever the case may be, that is what it does. So, guess we're gonna kill more rock dudes with our very... I don't know what it is about Dig. It just seems really weird to me the way it works. It's like... I just don't feel like digging underneath the ground and up should really be that effective against anything, really. I mean, especially stuff like Geodude, because, like, Geodude floats in the air. How does he even get hit by Dig? I don't know. I guess you're not really supposed to actually think about this kind of stuff, but I do, because that's just the way my brain works. It's very strange. Anyways, we're done all of the trainers up in the north there. I believe that was Route 10. So now we are good to go here in the very... I guess, is purple? Sometimes I have trouble telling between pink and purple. I guess this is purpley. The very purple Lavender Town. So we will explore what Lavender Town has in store for us on the next episode of Let's Play Pokemon Red. Catch you later.